Well, I think initially when you're observed, you feel a little self-conscious about just having another adult in the room watching you, especially your boss. So it's a little uncomfortable at first, but I had quite a few observations throughout the year, and it did get a little easier and a little more comfortable as the year went on to have them in here. And I did appreciate the feedback because there were things that I could think about and things that I would want to work on. So I did feel like the feedback was helpful.
Well, I think anytime anyone's in your room watching you, I think you tend to get nervous and worried about it. But as time went on, you saw that the feedback really was constructive and really helped you become a better teacher, so you were able to reflect on what they were saying and take that feedback as a reflection and improve.
I think every teacher worries a little bit, but at the same time I also know that the more they're in my room, the less I'll worry about it. So I almost welcome them to come as often as possible so that they can really truly see what's going on in the classroom, and I really don't worry about it too much.
I probably have the same reaction as most teachers, that the thought of being observed and receiving feedback can be kind of scary or makes you feel nervous, but our administrators have been really great about letting us know that they do so out of love and respect for our careers and our craft and wanting us to be better teachers. My perception of the feedback that we've gotten this year has definitely changed over time, because I've learned to welcome the feedback and to almost desire the feedback, so that I know what I should improve on and what's going
I think
well.
in the beginning I thought I needed to be on top of it all the time, just in case anybody came in, but I realized that I just need to keep teaching like I normally teach, and that the feedback they give me I can actually take little by little and try to work on and get better at. And I've felt more comfortable with them coming in, and honestly, I've just kind of been like, hey, whatever, come on in.
I think that our teachers have grown a lot this year with their willingness to accept feedback. I believe in the beginning of the year it was a little hard for them to take. I think we did have some tears or some hard conversations, but I think seeing their reaction, especially the latter half of the year, they would ask questions themselves, or they would say, well, what could I do better, or what did you notice? I think providing feedback is a great way for someone to look with another eye, to see how they might craft their teaching, their instruction, their assessment to better meet the needs of their kids.
Yes, I think that you have to really be trusting towards one another in order to really collaborate well together, and also in order to receive feedback from others. So I think that also the feedback, when somebody comes into your room and they really see what you're doing, when you get their feedback, it's nice to then sit down and really collaborate on different ideas as far as where you could go, if you had different lesson ideas, or hearing what they were thinking. Because sometimes if I think something's really great and fantastic, someone may come in and be able to provide me that honest feedback. Well, I really saw that this student was maybe a little off task, or here's a way that you could adjust it. And so I think when we are able to go into other rooms, we're really able to collaborate then on how to make things better and do our lessons in a more rigorous way.
Oh, definitely, because then that way, it sparks an idea for me, and then I can take it either to our group if it was more of an ITS that was giving me the information, and say, hey, this would be a cool thing to do, and then that way we, it kind of gives us a springboard to then sit down and maybe talk about different ways to teach a certain
I
subject.
believe that truly collaborating, you're getting a lot of ideas and you're sharing information, and when you get honest feedback, it allows you to take a step back and look at yourself, look at what you've been doing, and realizing that might not be working, and what are some ideas that other people have that have had success in their classroom.
I do. I think without true feedback, you cannot truly have effective collaboration.
I'm not real good at it. I'll be honest. but I don't mind doing it. It's kind of a different frame of mind, and I just don't mind doing it. It's okay.
I do. I try to give positive feedback, and then because it's hard to take that snapshot of when someone comes in your classroom or when you go into another classroom, you have to see, you're not seeing what went on before and after. You're just taking a little snapshot. So giving them honest feedback about what they're doing and how they can improve usually is taken with a grain of salt and received well.
Not very comfortable. I think most of the time I want to look for the positive and in the encouraging things that you want to tell people. So I think it is hard to come up with a nice way to give the constructive feedback. I think that's hard, especially with your peers.
I think that it was hard at first. I think it did take some practice because you didn't want to hurt feelings and you wanted to kind of make sure. But as this learning process has gone on this year, I think we really learned that it's in our best interest to give true, real feedback, that it's best for us and it's best for the students we're teaching. So at first it was really hard, but as time has gone on, we've really gotten good about it, and I think we've gotten thicker skin so that things that peers say, we know they're saying it in our best interest and the best interest of the kids and not to hurt our feelings.
We say here that feedback, honest feedback, isn't a Valentine. It's not a love letter. It is something that you use as a professional to grow and to become stronger, to help your students. We found out through observations of teachers that we were gathering a lot of data, and the data that we were gathering was that teachers and students, more in particular, didn't know their learning targets, and that was the data that we collected. Therefore, that led into professional learning, because we wanted very much for the students to be able to understand what their learning targets were, not just have activities to do and know and understand what they were doing in activities, but not really understand what or why they were learning what they were learning. The feedback, again, led into professional learning, and through our data team process, that's really where professional learning occurs. So that has been a wonderful eye-opening experience for me as someone who is sort of leading that process and leading that charge, to be able to use the data in professional and lead that into the professional learning piece.
You know, after I've been teaching 8 years, and after a while things seem to get a little stagnant, you know. I'm doing my thing and I'm trying to, you know, change it up a little bit, and of course the Common Core coming in gave me more of a challenge, which is great. But then also having other eyes and other minds looking at what I'm doing and then applying it to the Common Core and then applying it to the data team process was excellent. It just forced me to grow. I know I have more growing to do, but I enjoyed that stimulation, which I don't really think I was getting in years past as far as teacher learning was involved. So I think it's a good thing.
Our professional learning has guided what we do in our classrooms, and then the observation has backed that up by having people in our rooms seeing, you know, are we implementing the things that we're learning in professional learning? Are we understanding? Have we come to an understanding where we're able to implement those things effectively? And if not, then in our observation we receive, you know, feedback of things that we could maybe do a little bit differently in order to reach the levels of expertise in those areas that we work on in professional learning.
I do think it tied into data teams too, because when we were meeting about our data, we did need to make sure that we were giving constructive feedback and being honest with each other about the data and about what we could do to reach those students that needed to be reached, whether they were high, low, or in the middle.
Everything connected this year for, I want to say for the first time, but it really was a step-by-step process, and next year it will continue to grow. So we saw a lot of reasoning behind what we were doing in data teams because of what we were doing in the classrooms in the school.
With regard to professional learning, this year I think one of the most powerful ways we addressed feedback, in addition to walkthroughs and observations, conversation, was through our data team process. We looked at Hattie's work this year, and we looked at some of the most powerful ways that you can move children, and feedback was one of the number one ways that you can help move children forward. That applies to our teachers as well. I think having that discussion and talking about Hattie's work really became evident the second half of the year, because we started not only giving feedback to teachers all year, but we started seeing our students, and our teachers were teaching students how to give feedback. You could see it in Post-it notes, through conversation with each other. So I think that we are on the right path, but we still have a way to grow.
Personal concerns, I think the positive portions of the feedback is that it helps us to grow. Without feedback, we can't really learn about what we're doing well and those areas where we can improve. Myself as an administrator, one of the things I've really enjoyed is having the post-observation conferences with teachers so that we can talk about the good and those things that need to be improved upon. It's also given me an opportunity for me to reflect on the things that they feel that I can do better, things that we've done well this year that we can improve upon, things that we have not done that they would like for us to do in the future that could help benefit them as teachers. I just feel that feedback as a whole helps all of us to grow. And as we know, with growth and with change, sometimes those growing situations can be painful, but I do think that they help us to learn, help us to be better educators, they help us to help our children, they help us as a school system to achieve the goals that we have, and those goals should be for us to create an environment that is conducive to learning, and that conducive to learning, that environment requires us to talk, to give feedback, to work together, to collaborate, and to make our environment the best it can be.
Okay, this year we gave feedback in a variety of ways, via conversations we would have with teachers. We would send feedback via Google Docs or our evaluation forms. And I think the most powerful way to give critical feedback to teachers is not necessarily to tell them what you noticed, but rather ask them questions, leaving them things to ponder, ask them specific questions about how they might tweak or change instruction. Well, this year for me, it was a unique experience because this was my first year as an administrator, so it was different being on the other side, so to speak, and I feel like one of the most powerful questions that one of my mentors shared with me with regard to giving feedback was to ask teachers how they think it went. I used that question just about every time I did a walkthrough and every time I did an observation and a conference with a teacher. The teachers were 95% dead on with the areas that I noticed feedback should be given in. So I thought that was a really powerful question.
While I was reading Ron Clark's book, The Essential 55, I found a quote that I thought would go along nicely with what we've been talking about in regards to peer and colleague observations. He states that as adults, we are always put in situations where we have to look at the performance of others and make judgments. We are able to learn a lot about ourselves and the level of achievement we should expect from ourselves by observing the way our peers operate. Assessing others and letting them know your summation of their abilities can be challenging, however, because you must have a great deal of confidence in yourself in order to do so. You must feel secure with your own performance before you can tell others what is right or wrong with how they have performed. I really like this quote because it reminded me that the opportunities to go into my colleagues' classrooms and see how wonderful they were and the expectation that they had of themselves helped me to raise the bar for myself so that I had that higher expectation and I wanted to do better for my students.